Welcome to the Airgun Show. This week I'm out doing some slug testing using an FX Impact MKII that's fitted with a barrel liner that's specifically made for firing slugs. But first up, I'm out for a busy night's ratting with the night vision gear. Right, I'm out for a night's rat shooting and I'm hopeful that it's going to be a pretty good one. We actually shot a ratting episode here a few weeks ago and got a lot of shots. Now, I've been here a couple of times since, shot a lot more rats, but there still seem to be quite a few around. Now, the thing with this farm is that it's actually on a hill that's surrounded by a big area of low-lying ground. And what happens is when we get wet and cold weather, it pushes the rats in off of the countryside up onto the hill, where they're obviously seeking refuge from the flood water, and onto the farm, where they find an abundance of food and shelter. The equipment that I'm using this evening, it's a fairly standard night vision setup for me. The gun is the Zebroya Hortesia 177 sub 12 foot-pounds, which makes it great for shooting around farm buildings. It's multi-shot, which also is a great help when it comes to reloading in the dark. The big change tonight is that I've upgraded from my usual ATN X-Sight 2 to the new ATN X-Sight 4K. I absolutely loved the original X-Sight. This one is newer tech. I'm hoping it's going to be even better. I've been trying it out in the garden. Obviously I've zeroed it up in daylight and it produces a very sharp colour image by day. I've had a bit of a nose around the garden with it at night time, and the night vision image looks good too, so really keen to see how that performs. One thing I really like about this unit is rather than the fixed mount that the previous one had, this one's got a fairly standard 30mm tube, so you can use conventional scope mounts, and as ever I've got sports match mounts on this setup. My approach for tonight is going to be much the same as usual. Rather than just wandering around trying to shoot the odd rat, I'm going to target one area that I know to be particularly ratty. I'm going to sit myself down on a stool and shoot off of sticks. Now, the simple fact is rats don't offer you a very big target, so there's no point in making life any more difficult than it needs to be, so I like to take those rested shots. And I'm expecting shots to probably be between about 12 and 20 meters range, which is just about perfect with this setup. Now, I have gone to the trouble earlier on of putting out 1 or 2 bait spots, my usual favourite liquidised cat food, but in all honesty, the rats here are fairly bold, so I'm not really expecting it to make a great deal of difference. So, that's the plan. I'm going to get myself dug in, and hopefully we'll nail a few rats. Although I have shot a lot of rats on this farm, more keep moving in off the countryside to seek out food and shelter. And it isn't long until the first one of the night puts in an appearance. Wow, that one was close to a bait spot, but it seemed to be a lot more interested in the puddle. It was about 12 meters away, needed a little bit of holdover. The X-Sight 4K certainly did the job. This is a really comfortable setup, and when shooting over known distances like this, it makes easy work of picking off unsuspecting rats with headshots. Well, had to wait about 20 minutes for that one, which is a bit longer than I'd usually expect between shots, especially at the start of the night. However, it was well onto a bait spot, so maybe it was just as well that I bothered to put a few out.
It's a slower start than expected, but it looks as if going to the trouble of putting out a few bait spots really was worthwhile, especially with this one, which has now attracted its second visitor.
Another longish wait there, but another one on a bait spot, so I certainly am pleased that I made the effort with them.
Rats tend to be less fidgety when they're hiding under cover like this because it makes them feel safe. Unfortunately for this one, it doesn't hide them from night vision gear.
Wow, they're not exactly coming thick and fast, but I am getting a fairly steady trickle of shots, so I don't really think it's worth considering moving. I think I'll sit it out and see what happens here. There's another one. Now they do tend to feel safe around those pallets, and I think it's because they know that when they're in amongst them, they're safe from attacks by cats, foxes and owls. Though unfortunately for that one, the same rules don't apply to airgun shooters.
After a comparatively slow start, there eventually appears to be an increase in activity as more rats start to venture above ground.
Wow, that one was pretty close. And it also seemed to be missing an eye, as I was only getting eye shine on one side. It does seem to be picking up a little bit now, so hopefully we're going to see a bit more action. I've been here for about an hour, shot about half a dozen rats. I'd like to shoot a lot more than that over the next hour.
Sure enough, we do eventually get some of the busy shooting that I'd been hoping for, and a productive hour or so follows.
Well, I've lost count of how many rats we've had, but it must be more than 15. But that said, The last half an hour or so it's been pretty much stone dead, so it seems like a good time to draw the session to a close. Really pleased with how it's gone though. We could have shot a few more rats, but the kit's performed brilliantly, and I'm really pleased with the combo that I've got between the ATN X-Lite 4K and the Zebroya Hortesia. Being such a small light gun, I know I'm shooting from sticks, but it's still nice to have a small manageable gun when you've got such a bulky night vision unit on here. I've been sat here for more than 3 hours now. It's cold. I'm more than ready to have a stretch, so I'm going to call it a night. More rats falling to the night vision setup there. And now, it's the Airgun Show news.
This is the Airgun Show news. Shooters are having more trouble than ever with the firearms licensing procedure. That's the evidence from Basque's firearms team, who say the number of enquiries they received topped 10,000 last year. The most common issue was police forces taking the law into their own hands and getting applicants to do or pay extra, such as by demanding independent medical verification. Basque's Bill Harriman said that, with continuing issues surrounding medical verification and the peak renewal period in the 5-year cycle starting this year, 2020 is set to be just as busy for the firearms team. There's also a new solution if you need an FAC for your airgun and can't find a GP who'll give you a medical report. Sadly, that's more common than ever, but Basque has now launched a service that will put you in touch with a friendly GP who will help out, wherever you are in the country. If you need to use the service, give the Basque firearms team a ring using the number on screen now. Don't forget to have your say in the nation's favourite shooting ground poll. Run by Clay Shooting Magazine, the annual vote selects the most loved ground in the UK, as well as giving out regional and discipline-focused awards and the coveted Best Breakfast Prize. Make sure you voted before the poll closes at the end of this month. You can vote online using the address on screen now. And finally, the latest edition of Airgun Shooter magazine is on sale. We've got 2 new rifles on test in this issue, one from Umarex and one from Hatsan. Plus there's After Dark ratting and drive-by rabbit shooting. And the issue's packed with technique tips too, from pellet preparation to picking a PCP. Get Airgun Shooter in newsagents now, or subscribe at myfavouritemagazines.co.uk. That was the Airgun Show news.
Right, I've got the FX Impact MKII here today. It's a gun that I tested in detail probably about 9 months ago, and I've been using it quite a lot for my hunting over the last year. This isn't my usual FX Impact though. This gun has been set up to shoot slugs. Now it seems to me that the main advantage with slugs seems to be their long range potential, and while I'm not really keen on stretching the ranges recklessly far when targeting live quarry, I am quite interested just to see what these things might be capable of, so I thought we'd do a bit of testing today. Anyone who has tried using slugs will probably know that it can be a real challenge to find one that works with your gun. You will probably also know that the FX Impact MKII has interchangeable barrel sleeves, and FX has set this one up with a sleeve which is made specifically for firing slugs. In theory, that should mean that this gun is a heck of a lot less fussy when it comes to matching it with the right ammo. This is an FAC rated airgun which with this ammo is producing 49 foot-pounds at the muzzle. Now that's a powerful setup, so we're testing it on a proper range that's got a permanent backstop in place. Now on the subject of ammo, FX have sent me a few tins of H&N slugs. These things weigh 27 grains and seem to be very uniform and cleanly made. We've got pretty good conditions for accuracy testing today. It's a very cold day, but there is barely a breath of wind. Now, I've already zeroed up at 75 metres and I'm pretty pleased with what this setup is doing. So what I plan to show you is what it's capable of at 50, 75 and then 100 metres. So what I'll do now is get Kev to head out onto the range with a chronograph and our very sophisticated target holder on a wheelbarrow. He'll take it out to 50 metres and we'll kick off there. Right, that's our 5 on the target, which actually looks pretty good. I'm just going to put the 6th shot now through the Chrono. Okay, so what we've got there is our 5-shot group at 50 metres and that final shot through the chronograph to get the velocity. Kev's just walking in now and getting us the measurements. How's the group looking, mate?
Right, the group, Matt, is 14 mil centre to centre.
So that's 14 millimetres centre to centre.
With a 10 mil rise.
And a 10 millimetre rise from the 75 metre zero. And what's the velocity like?
The reading on that is 836.
So we've got 836 feet per second. Now I'm not going to attempt to do the maths there, but it sounds to me like that slug was still carrying a heck of a lot of power. What I get Kev to do now is take the target and the Chrono out to 75 metres and we'll see what's happening out there. Right, well that was the group, and again one through the Chrono. Okay, so that was at 75 metres. It's still looking pretty tidy. Again, Kev's just doing the honours now. Looks like he's got something. How's the group looking, mate? Right, so that's 21 millimetres centre to centre, so that's still, I think that's fairly comfortably sub 1 inch. And what about the velocity, mate? 812 feet per second. Now, I'm not able to do the maths accurately, but I think that's still got to be around the 40 foot-pound mark with that 27 grain slug, so this is still churning out the power. Okay, mate, can you push it out to 100 metres? Well, that was the group. Now for the Chrono. Well, that is a relief because that's somebody else's Chrono and I was a bit wary about shooting through that at 100 metres. It appears to have gone through. The group has opened up a little bit. I can see through the scope. I'm not entirely surprised. Also, this scope only goes up to 12 times magnification. So I think at that sort of range, to get a bit more precision, more magnification would certainly help. Now, Kev looks like he's got his measurements. I'm probably not going to be able to hear him from over there. He's walking in a bit closer. And I'll give him a shout. How did the group look, mate? So that's 33 millimetres centre to centre. Not as loose as I thought, actually. That's not a bad group, not much more than what, about 1.25 inches. One thing I will point out is I was expecting a fair amount of drop with that group, so I was aiming for the target at the top of the crow's head, and thankfully the slugs were still striking the target. What was the drop, Kev?
So that was a 95mm drop from the 75m zero. So what's that, roughly a 3-inch drop, give or take. So at that range you're going to be using a fair amount of holdover. And what about the velocity? 752 feet per second. What's that? That's still got to be over 30 foot-pounds. What we'll do now is set up something slightly different so we can hopefully show you what these slugs do when they hit the target. Right, so what we did there was line up a row of 10 clays to see how many a single slug would go through, and that's at 50 meters. Looking through the scope, it looked like it did a fair amount of damage. Kev's just having a look now. How many's it gone through, mate?
Right, it's gone through, believe it or not, 8 of the 10.
Okay, so that's gone through 8 of the 10 clays, so that has done a heck of a lot of damage. And also, since we did the accuracy testing, we've had time to do the sums with the muzzle energy and the downrange energy. So from 49 foot-pounds at the muzzle, we've got it doing 42 foot-pounds at 50 meters, 39 foot-pounds at 75 meters, and 34 foot-pounds at 100 meters. So apart from doing a real serious amount of damage to whatever you're aiming at, you're also having to be very conscious about what's behind it. Thinking about the ricochet and carry potential with this setup, sound backstops really are order of the day. So that's my first proper look at slug ammunition, and I have to say that I'm really impressed with what this setup appears to be capable of. And funnily enough, I can just feel a slight breeze on my cheek, so it seems like we probably had the best part of the day for doing that accuracy testing. Now, on the subject of accuracy, I think with more experimentation and certainly with a more powerful scope, I could push things out even further and probably also tighten up some of those groups that I was getting over those ranges. Now, I know some shooters are pushing slugs out now to 200 meters, 250 meters and beyond. So there is no denying that slugs are taking high power air gunning to another level.
Look out for the new and improved Airgun Shooter magazine, packed full of technique, gear and insight from some of the best shooters in the industry. Brand new look and free video content. Pick up your copy today in stores or online.
That's all for this week, but as ever, we'll be back again in a fortnight. Thank you for watching, and please don't forget to like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. And if you aren't already a member of the BASC, have a look at their website and check out the benefits that you could be taking advantage of through Airgun membership.